From South Carolina Public Radio, this is the South Carolina Lede. I'm your host, Gavin Jackson, and this episode was recorded on March 28th, 2025 from South Carolina Public Radio Studios here in Columbia. On this episode of The Lede, tort reform is done. It's official. Wait, no, just in the Senate, I should say. And just for now, actually, so... Oh, well, we have some reaction. We let you know where it's going and what's next. We also catch up with Senator Larry Grooms on his subcommittee's report over the $1.8 billion boondoggle and the recommendation to impeach Treasurer Curtis Loftis. And the Table Rock complex fires continue to burn more than 10,000 acres in the Upstate. They are not controlled, and we have the latest from on the ground in Pickens County. The only thing that can make this show any better is if we had your voice on it in the wind down. We need you to contribute at 803-563-7169. Give us a shout. Let us know what's on your mind. Maybe you've been affected by the fires. Maybe you're in #YeahThatGreenville and you've been seeing the smoke, smelling the smoke. We've been up there. Let us know what you're thinking about, how spring is going for you. 803-563-7169. The tort reform bill has officially passed the state Senate. That's right, the major omnibus bill S-244 is now on its way over to the House, where it faces a kind of a questionable future. But let's not dwell on the negative just yet. Friend of the pod, Maayan Schechter, was covering all this for us this week since I was out in the field covering the Table Rock complex fires. And 4 weeks into this debate, we have a resolution, especially after a long Wednesday in which another compromise amendment was passed by voice vote and the bill itself was passed 35-7. Maayan says that the amended comprehensive bill touches on nearly every sector and person in South Carolina, from restaurants and bars, manufacturers, hospitals, forever chemicals, attorneys, and victims. Senate Majority Leader Shane Massey of Edgefield told reporters that the bill also applies to auto insurance, small businesses, truckers, large industry, people everywhere across the state. Now, reporters interviewed Massey after the Senate gave a final perfunctory vote to the bill on Thursday, and they asked him about the compromise, the carve-outs, liquor liability, and the bill's future, and the contention that erupted over it. Take a listen.
Yeah, so, this is a big bill, and it's a big bill because there are lots of issues to address. And so there have been lots of conversations for a long while. Those conversations really started coming together over the last few weeks. And then last week, or heading into last week, we made a decision that, the joint and several, the verdict form parts were going to be the most contentious. We think we can get agreement on the rest of it. So let's try to address that part. Let's take that off the table, and then we can deal with joint and several in the verdict form later. So 2 weeks ago, that's what we did, right? We came forward with that agreement that dealt with sections, everything other than joint and several in the verdict form. And we were able to get through that without a whole lot of controversy. There were still some questions there because it deals with a lot of different subject areas.
Massey was also asked whether liquor liability changes, an issue being pushed by bars and restaurants that they argue threatens to close their businesses, and whether to take up that House bill if there's no movement on the broader tort reform bill in the House this year. Here's Massey.
I'm confident that the members of the House of Representatives want to do their best to serve South Carolina as well, and they want to address the problems that are out there. So I think with what we've passed, if they take a look at it, if they read it, they're going to recognize that these are solutions to problems that really exist. They're going to hear from their constituents as well. They're going to hear from the surveyors and engineers, and they're going to hear from more truckers, and they're going to hear from restaurants and bars and manufacturers and all these folks. They're going to hear about the troubles that they're encountering, and hopefully they'll take what they learn from that and then read this bill and recognize that we really were trying to address all those things that we've heard about. And I think if that happens, then I have confidence in the House of Representatives that they'll want to address those issues as well.
Senator Margie Bryant Matthews of Colleton County was one of 7 Democrats who opposed the bill. Matthews, who's an attorney as well as others who voted against the bill, says why she voted no.
I do not agree that we need to change our tort laws in the state of South Carolina to satisfy insurance companies. My constituents spoke overwhelmingly that we've lived by this form of law as it relates to settling out disputes with a jury and a judge, and we didn't need insurance companies and big companies to come in and to limit the amount of damages our constituents can receive.
The bill's off to the House now, and again, we will see as we march down to Sine Die on May 8th whether that bill will get passed to the governor's desk. Next up, and sticking with the Senate, this week, the Senate Finance Constitutional Subcommittee, chaired by Berkeley Republican Senator Larry Grooms, published its report on the $1.8 billion accounting error boondoggle caper fiasco that ensnared the former Comptroller General Richard Ekstrom, the former state auditor George Kennedy, and the Treasurer's office with Treasurer Curtis Loftis, who remains in office. The report made several findings and conclusions similar to what had been recommended in that Alex Partners report, but one major recommendation was the removal of Treasurer Loftis for his shortcomings on this accounting matter. Remember, Loftis is the state's banker, and you got some errors on your balance sheet there. Now, for more on all of this and the way forward on impeachment, which could take place in the coming weeks, I spoke with Senator Grooms on This Week in South Carolina and opened by asking him what was in this report.
We have spent the last 15 months trying to uncover the origins and purpose of a mysterious $1.8 billion fund. And last year, when I was here with you, there was some question about the $1.8 billion. Some folks wanted to spend it. Some wanted to give it back to the taxpayer. And I was hopeful that a forensic accounting team could at least tell us where the money belonged if the money existed. And sure enough, after having some of the nation's expert forensic auditors come in, take a look at our books, who had the expertise to try to find out what is this account all about, they came to the conclusion in their published report in January that the $1.8 billion fund that we had assurances of actually existed turned out it did not exist. Mm-hmm. And in my mind, if the treasurer doesn't understand whether $1.8 billion is real or not, perhaps he's not qualified for the job. But we continued our investigation. We wanted to find out from the state auditor, the Comptroller General. We had the forensic auditors to come in and testify. We wanted to get a better handle of what was going on. The whole time we were documenting everything. And so we released our report, about a 49-page report earlier this week, and with close to 605 pages of documentation. So it's a very well-documented piece of work. It will withstand any type of scrutiny, and I attest to its accuracy. And what we now know was in 2016, at the direction of the state treasurer, Curtis Loftis, employees of the state treasury began converting accounts from an old accounting system to a new accounting system. Mm-hmm. In 2017, they knew there were errors with the conversion process. They believed that the conversion process would correct itself, but it didn't. The following year, the sum grew to $1.8 billion. So instead of trying to find the mistake or correct the mistake, it was covered up. It was hidden. It was coded in a way that it didn't normally appear on our state's books. So for the past 7 or more years, the books of the state treasury were not accurate and they were not complete. To this day, the state treasury books are not accurate and are not complete. The state treasurer has more than 5 statutory duties, but there are 5 statutory duties that he has violated, that he has broken, and they all relate to having accurate and true books of the treasury, and now we know that they were not accurate, they were not complete. There are other reporting requirements that the treasurer has a legal obligation to fulfill, and he failed in those duties. Had he lived up, had he abided by the state law that binds him to his job, that spells out what his duties are, we would not have a $1.8 billion error within our state treasury. Hundreds of millions of dollars of errors is not acceptable. And having those errors within our books for at least the past 7 years, while he knew about them, failed to disclose them, is a breach of duty that deserves action. It deserves accountability. The people of the state deserve to have a treasurer who can understand what money is real, what money is not. People of the state deserve to have a treasurer who can keep accurate books of the state. He has failed in those duties, and our subcommittee ultimately recommended that we invoke a provision of our Constitution to remove him from office.
The treasurer did admit to some fault, but also shared that blame with the comptroller general's office and the auditor's office. Both of those folks who were in those offices at the time involved in this have resigned. The treasurer's not resigned. He's not heeded those calls, and now it sounds like he may be impeached. But that being said, I want to mention what he said on his Facebook, and that was Treasurer Loftis saying, quote, "Senator Larry Grooms goes to the will of the Senate and talks about me with utter contempt. He utilizes his senatorial immunity because he can't be prosecuted for false statements made about me. He could have volunteered to take an oath to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, but he did not." He also posted saying that the State Senate Finance Committee met today and shocked even me. Senator Grooms' report was inaccurate, misleading, and petty, quote. So are you not telling the truth? Are you telling the truth, the whole truth?
I solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So help me
You've
God.
taken an oath of office too.
The treasurer is doing everything he can to misdirect attention away from the errors and statutory obligations that he has failed at. He has failed us as a state treasurer. The books of the Treasury are not accurate. They are not correct. He has violated his oath of office by not upholding the duties that he has sworn to do. So if you can't attack the evidence, you attack the messenger. And he can attack me all he wants to. That's still not going to correct the books of the Treasury until we get a treasurer who can take responsibility for his mistakes and work on behalf of the people of South Carolina and faithfully discharge the duties of his office.
Yeah, and your whole report, everyone who testified was under oath. Y'all are under oath as well. You've sworn an oath to office. And there's also this whole audit done by an outside independent firm to the tune of $3 million to taxpayer dollars. But the governor can remove a constitutional officer from office pending a hearing and 2/3 vote in both chambers. Is this where this is heading? How does this play out moving forward?
That was our subcommittee's recommendation. There's been some discussion among Senate members and Senate leadership. And on Tuesday, we will probably make some announcements as to what action the Senate as a whole will be taking.
And can we do this? I mean, is this possible? It's never happened before. I mean, what kind of time frame do you need to make something like this happen from what you understand?
Well, right now we know that the errors of the treasurer has cost the taxpayers somewhere about $10 million. Our state is now embroiled in a Securities and Exchange Commission investigation because of the way our state's books are right now. The books are inaccurate. They have not been corrected. We've had to hire a forensic auditing team to help us understand the origins. We're now having to hire an outside monitor to monitor what occurs within our state treasury and how the state treasury books are then recorded by the comptroller general. This is all costing taxpayer money. We now just had a subcommittee hearing where our attorney general at the subcommittee let us know that the legal fees are now mounting, and next year they're going to be around $15 million. So we're up to $25 million in taxpayer money to try to protect the taxpayer from what's happening with the corruption that we now see within our state's books. Mm-hmm. The state books are corrupted, they're rusted, they can't be trusted. They have to be fixed. And I don't know how they can be fixed if the cause of the issue is still there, and that would be our treasurer.
One of those recommendations was full and complete accounting on those books, also doing that compliance consultant, and also some changes to the Constitution and maybe getting these folks appointed by the governor instead of elected. So when it comes down to 30 seconds, is this the closest as you're going to get to some oversight of the treasurer's office without actually going to an election at this point?
This is what the Constitution gives the General Assembly as a means of correction. It's usually correct these things at the ballot box, but the Constitution gives this remedy for just this occasion when we have a constitutional officer who has violated his oath, his duties, and is now harming the people of our state.
And is there support in the Senate to do this?
I believe there's overwhelming support in the Senate to do this.
Stay tuned for the impeachment resolution to drop next week in the Senate and for things to start being scheduled out from there in what will be an unprecedented process for the state when it comes to impeachment of a constitutional officer. And one thing I could not let us go without talking about is the Table Rock Complex fires up in the Upstate. Like I said, I spent some time there this week covering those, and the governor declared a state of emergency last Saturday, which still is in effect, as well as a statewide burn ban due to consistent dry weather conditions. Now, while the fires grew during this week, more personnel and resources were deployed to get things under better control compared to when I was out there in the middle of the week when the fire doubled in size due to winds and the abundance of debris from Hurricane Helene that's really helped fuel the blazes. Luckily, no one has been injured, and the homes in the mountains and foothills near the fires haven't been affected thanks to the work of the Forestry Commission and its partners. There's like some 300 folks out there day in, day out, cutting fire breaks, hand sawing through trees and things to try and get some access out there. You'll hear some more details about it, but it's an ongoing effort as well as assets in the sky, dropping water and fire retardant on these fires. Now, on Friday, the governor held a briefing at Table Rock State Park where smoke was pluming.
Well, it's dry now and the relative humidity is low, and so there's plenty of fuel. So then here comes the fire. Here comes, we believe, some careless people, and we now have two big fires going, and they've burned thousands of acres so far. They're, because of the good work by the people that you see here, using their experience, they have, so far we've had no structures lost. What they've done is when the structure is threatened, they try to build around it, try to deflect the fire in another direction. And we're fortunate that we've not lost no structures because there are plenty of them out there that could have been lost. But we got a lot of work to do. It's going to take a long time to get this contained. It is not contained now.
Now, the Forestry Commission has provided some great information throughout this entire situation and continue to do so, including from State Forester Scott Phillips about the extent of the fires in our state this month alone.
During the month of March, the Forestry Commission has responded to over 373 wildfires, burning over 18,100 acres within the state. That's orders of magnitude more than we typically do within a month, even more than we do in some years as far as the number of acres burned. Currently, we have three major fires active within the state. The Table Rock Complex here, which encompasses the Table Rock wildfire and the Persimmon Ridge fire, is currently at 10,672 acres, 0% containment on those fires. The Covington Drive fire in Myrtle Beach is still very active. We're seeing burning within the peat soil. That's the governor mentioned just a minute ago. And we did have a fire burn outside of the line yesterday, but our resources were able to capture that and have that back contained. That fire is at 85% containment, 2,059 acres, and as I said, it is still smoldering.
Like I said, I covered this fire all day on Wednesday and Thursday morning, and I've seen substantial smoke in areas and seen the wildfire rapidly expand due to the winds on Wednesday. But on Thursday, conditions were once again real smoky. I was wearing an N95 mask because if you didn't, like you really felt it in your lungs, like you've been smoking from what I've heard. But on Friday, conditions were clear, and the areas that I had seen burning were no longer as smoky, which prompted me to ask the state forester, Phillips, whether that meant that the fire was contained somewhat, even though it's still at 0%. Here's what he said in explaining containment and control.
Contains means that we have a line on that fire that we believe will hold it in place where it is. We typically have a couple definitions out there when we talk about wildfires. Containment and control are ones that a lot of people get confused with. Containment means that we have a line on that fire that we can hold it in that place. As a reasonable expectation, we can hold it in that place. Controlled means that we have that fire surrounded all the way around. When we get to 100% containment, we've got a line all the way around it that we believe we can hold it. Control means we've got a line all the way around it, and that fire will stay in that place. There's no chance that it's going to escape. And so with these fires and the conditions that we're facing in the state right now, the dryness of the fuels, the extreme low humidities, the high winds that we're having, containment is very, very difficult to achieve. We're seeing long-range spotting. Just the other day, the fire escaped into Table Rock State Park right here. Y'all A lot of you press saw it as you were driving over here from the command post this morning. You saw the fire inside the park. We were putting fire lines in there. This was in grass fuels, 40 feet wide, and it was spotting across a 40-foot wide fire break. And so we've got very extreme conditions. It's very difficult to get lines that will hold. That's the reason that you're seeing 0% containment on either one of these fires. And so containment's going to be difficult to achieve. Control is going to take a long time as we move forward on both this fire and the fire at Myrtle Beach.
And a lot of the concern around the fire is the fuel from Hurricane Helene that took down so many trees in the upstate area. Remember, it hit this part of the state hard as a tropical storm late last September. In fact, the SCDOT had previously said that they had collected 5 million cubic yards of debris from Helene across the state. That's 3 Empire State Buildings worth of debris. I don't even know how that works, but that's what that is. And that's just what they could collect. So imagine what's in the woodland areas. Phillips said some of the lighter material is fueling these fires, and the bigger items will present challenges this fall.
The down trees, a lot of the light fuels, what we call 1 hour fuels, those fuels are easily being consumed. Some of the heavier fuels, 100-hour, 1,000-hour fuels, when we start talking about larger branches, logs, they're not ready for consumption yet from Helene, but there's some that's already down, especially up on Table Rock, that we've had some trees that were impacted by the 2016 Pinnacle Mountain Fire that actually killed some of the trees on top, and those trees are down, or we've got hemlock that was killed by hemlock woolly adelgid, which is an invasive species, and those trees have down and they're dried, and so those 1,000-hour fuels there are being consumed, but the ones from Helene, we're not seeing those consumed yet. They will be a significant fuel source should we have a fire here this fall. But the big thing with the Helene debris that's down right now is it's limiting our access of our firefighters to get into the woods. We've got logs down across fire breaks that we've put in place in previous years, and we're having to go in with saw crews and actually cut those logs out of the way. Very physically demanding labor to go in there and remove that, where typically we would be able to go in with a bulldozer, blade that out, get a containment line pretty quickly, but because of all the trees that are down from Hurricane Helene, we cannot access these areas, and in some cases there's stacks of debris on either side of the road where they did road cleanup to clean it up initially, and they just stacked it up on the side, and those fuels are very receptive to flame, and they also block access should the fire spot behind it. And so access is a major issue with the down fuels we have from Hurricane Helene. It will be a continuing issue for the next, several years likely. It's going to change the way we have to attack fires in the mountains of South Carolina and in the Hurricane Helene impacted areas.
If you want to stay up to date with the latest on the Table Rock Complex, check out the State Forestry Commission's Facebook and YouTube pages or visit scfc.gov. Welcome to the Wind Down section, our little break from the news. We're glad you're here. This is our chance to talk with you, me, and A.T. Shire lead podcast producer.
Here I am.
Here I am.
I've made it. I'm here. Gavin's here. We're all here.
We're here.
Thank you for making it. Gavin, you've been running all over, huh? You've been all over.
Yes.
He's been in Table Rock. He's been in Columbia. Then he's been in Table Rock, and then he's been in Columbia.
I was in Charleston over the weekend. I'm like on the campaign trail on my own here.
You have traversed the state,
the corners of the state.
Mm-hmm. That's just great.
The Durango smells like a barbecue in a good way. Smoky.
Yeah.
Forest fire. Not good.
Yeah.
And we were just talking a minute ago. Like again, I definitely wore a mask because I didn't see many people wearing N95 masks, which was kind of concerning. And I think it's your mind plays a trick on you. It's like when you see fog and you're like, oh, that fog's over there.
Yes.
And then you look behind you, it's like, oh, it's back there. And you don't ever realize that you're actually in the fog.
I'm
because
actually
it doesn't
amidst
look
the
like
fog. The fog.
And I'm like, okay, we're in a bunch of smoke. And like, yes, you're in your car, you have an air filter, but when you get out, like, whoa.
That plus
brought
the
back
pollen.
memories.
That plus the pollen.
I might just want to wear it just for the pollen.
I've been saying, Gavin, I should be neti potting constantly. My nasal passages are blasted right now. It's insane.
I do the spray, the nasal spray. Maybe I'm addicted to it. They say it happens.
That's Afrin. It's a good miracle drug. It works very well.
So you do the neti pot?
I do a plastic one.
And the Navage?
Gavin, I think you should consider a Navage. Yes, the medical miracle that is the Navage.
Are you?
You don't have to do
little
that.
Teapot?
It's not a little teapot, short and stout. No, it's more of a. It's like it looks like something that would have like a sauce, like a barbecue sauce.
Okay.
And you spray it in your nose, and it shoots out all the gunk and bad on the other side. Ugh. Yeah. And it's.
Does it work? Does it
works
feel better?
in a way that like you feel like I don't know if I should have done that, and then you feel I can smell every smell that's ever been made. Like you feel so strong and powerful. Yeah. Until invariably you go outside one more time and ingest more. Pollen. It's bad. Like we've been carrying Rena around outside, and she just coughs herself to sleep now.
I can't wait for the Dust Bowl.
Yeah. It's really gross.
We could use some rain.
We could use some rain. But Gavin, we've spoken too much already. Okay,
we've been talking.
We have a call, and it's if there's smoke, if there's fire, there's no safer place to be than on the open seas. Okay, so we got a call from someone ready to head out. Are you ready, Gavin?
Ahoy! Permission to play the voicemail.
Good afternoon. This is Abby calling from Beaufort, South Carolina. I was listening to the latest edition and realized I have never gotten back in touch with y'all after I had checked in back in the late spring after we had come back on our sailboat to prep to head out again. Well, we are heading out again very soon, and I promised I will keep y'all in touch and updated maybe on some of the adventures that'll be along the way. And enjoy your podcast, and that's it. Thank you.
Abby, thank you for calling. That we're going to follow this under the Gavin Open Seas Maritime Report. Gosmar. Thank you. I know Abby didn't say where she's going, but take us with you.
Yeah,
please take us on the open seas.
Abby, this sounds like so much fun.
Sounds like fun.
I love the idea of dispatches from abroad, from the deep briny, but also
3 hours later.
3 hours later. Abby, you could help us achieve a dream that Gavin and I have had, mostly Gavin, for a very long time of recording a podcast on a boat. On a boat. And you have a boat.
And if it doesn't work for Abby, maybe one of our other mariners.
Yeah.
Marineras.
Oh, how you doing?
That's a sauce.
No, I think it's
marineras.
Marineras.
It's a sauce. I gotta stop you there. That's sauce. Red sauce. If you got a boat, holler at us.
Speaking of marinara, and I want to talk about satellite communications.
It's pronounced marinade.
Amy, producer Amy, was with me today. We traveled up to Table Rock for the governor's press conference, which we streamed.
Supper knower Amy.
And Amy drove so I could produce and write and all the great stuff. And I got her to stop at a Spinks on the way home. We got a little nosh. I got my little King's Hawaiian sliders. Great, easy, whatever. Best grab and go on the road you can get, I think. She had never been to the Spinks, so she decided to carve it up, and she got these cheese balls, like mozzarella sticks, but they're more in ball form. And then she also got 2 breadsticks. So Amy is just living this interesting situation.
I'm scrunching my face.
Now the mozzarella sticks were great. She loved the breadsticks, but she also said she had marinara sauce.
Marinara.
But there was no way. I needed an actual jar of it to fit in a cup holder, essentially, because I wasn't going to open a loose thing of marinara sauce and just start dipping and driving.
It sounds incredibly dicey.
Dipping and driving.
But also the idea of gas station marinara is a concept that I wish I hadn't been exposed to.
You want to talk about forever chemicals?
Yes, exactly.
Warm it up so it leaches out, too.
Yeah, a lot of PFAs.
But also when I was talking about satellite communications, so we're up in Table Rock State Park, and I've had some cell service up there, actually surprisingly some cell service up there. It's a great area. I've never really spent too much time up there. But where we were today to stream the governor's press conference in this beautiful situation, they didn't really have anything it would have been hard to do on cell service, right? With
Sure.
the little backpack transmitters that we have,
Which
they take over cell
It
signals.
functions on cell, yeah.
So I was like, ugh, I didn't really think about that. And I thought it'd be okay. But it turns out our friends at EMD were like, we got you. They had a Starlink out there.
Sweet.
So we were like,
Cool.
say what you want about Elon, but that thing actually cranks up pretty good. So I'm like, I think we need a Starlink just in case.
I think
you can buy a receiver for a couple $100.
I'm gonna back you off of this ledge here.
Okay.
And I'm gonna say this is where we need to advocate for ourselves for having a satellite phone. Okay.
Yeah.
We need a satellite phone a la Lost World Jurassic Park.
Totally.
Okay.
But I think if you have a Starlink, we can get a hotspot on, so we can actually use our cell phones at that situation. But maybe we just need both.
Yeah, my biggest thing is the Starlink is not in the Lost World Jurassic Park.
Okay, so you want to get real specific. So we need Mercedes-Benz vehicles.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's a Mercedes.
I'm going to have you learn gymnastics so you can kick a velociraptor in the face. Yeah, your dad is going to have to be Jeff Goldblum. So I'm going to be a stickler about that.
You haven't said anything bad yet.
Yeah. Okay. So, but Gavin, one bad thing is this show has to end.
No.
Okay. Yep, that's right. I have to go rescue my dad. He's one-on-one with Rena right now. No grandma, just granddad. So we got to go.
We have to leave now.
Say the outro.
Well, thank you everyone for keeping up with us. Thank you, Abby. Enjoy your flotilla is not the right word. Enjoy your journey. We can't wait to hear about it later. Also, be like Abby, give us a shout, 803-563-7169. We love hearing from you guys. And if you've been affected by the wildfires, let us know too. We'll get you any information you need. Also, you can stay up to date with the latest news on scetv.org and southcarolinapublicradio.org. And don't forget to support your local newspapers. The South Carolina Lede is a production of South Carolina Public Radio. Our producer is A.T. Shire. Amy Crouch is our supervising producer. Sean Birch is our executive producer. This podcast is produced with support from PRX and is made possible in part by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, as well as listener contributions to the ETV Endowment of South Carolina. For the South Carolina Lead, I'm Gavin Jackson. Be well, South Carolina.
Yeah.
What about the
Navage.
the Navage?
That's just an Eddie
Let's save this for the wind down.
Okay.